of Americans, and soon they will be available to everyone.
This vaccine means hope. It will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
I want to go back to work and I want to be able to move around.
To visit with Michelle's mom, to hug her and see her on her birthday.
You know what I'm really looking forward to is going to opening day in Texas Ranger Stadium with a full stadium.
We've lost enough people and we've suffered enough damage.
In order to get rid of this pandemic, it's important for our fellow citizens to get vaccinated.
I'm getting vaccinated because we want this pandemic to end as soon as possible.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
So roll up your sleeve and do your part.
This is our shot.
Now it's up to you.
Hi, everyone. This is Cathy Rodriguez. I'm President and CEO for the Sacramento Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and you are joining us for our weekly Juntos with Cathy. Juntos means together, and that's because I believe together we are stronger, we are better, we can accomplish more. These past couple of weeks have had a lot of incidents happen, throughout the USA and here in California, and they have been disheartening, to say the least, right? We saw in Georgia where 6 women, API descent, were killed because someone was having apparently a very bad day, is what we've been told. We want to say how much we stand with our community, and we stand with our brothers and sisters in the API community in saying that that's not okay. And this, my next 2 guests that I have, I want to say it happens to be coincidence that they're here this particular week, because they actually reached out to me a couple months ago and asked, if they could be a part of Juntos, because they really wanted to be able to reach out to the community, to share how they're able to be our allies and friends and neighbors, and how they can really assist, in times of trouble, but also in times of joy. And these 2 people are actually Captain Green and Lieutenant Chandler from our Sacramento Police Department. And I am fortunate to have them here with us today. And we're going to get to know them a little bit better, ask them some questions. You can feel free to send in some questions if you have them too. But gentlemen, thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for having us. This is our honor.
Oh, well, that's so great of you to say that. And, I wanted to start off, as you probably heard me say, but saying that this was a proactive thing, that you actually reached out, to us and said, hey, we'd really love to be a part of the show. We'd really love to figure out a way that we can reach out to the community. And I have to tell you that I was really impressed, right, that this is something that you wanted to do. And so I just wanted to ask you, and both of you can answer this, Captain and Lieutenant, what is it about what you do that you feel it's so important that you be connected to the community?
So I'll start and then I'll let Vance answer. But I think on a global scale, or, for our entire region, it's important because we really need to understand and be a part of the community to be effective in our role in the police department. And so if we're not proactive about making sure that we're connected with every segment of our society or our community, we're doing a disservice to our community and also to the role that we're here to serve. And so it's critically important that we, are looking for opportunities to engage every part of our community. I think for us reaching out to you specifically, our station, our South Command, we are in the heart of one of our larger Latino communities in Sacramento. And so really our police department is your police department. And it's really critical that we find opportunities to connect with the community that we live and work in every day. And so your organization is a great one for us to establish that relationship. And so that's why we're here.
So great. Lieutenant Chandler, do you want to add to that?
So yeah, just to add to what Captain Green already mentioned, for those of you who don't know, we work out of the South Station for the Sacramento Police Department, and our station is on Franklin Boulevard, just north of Fruit Ridge Road. And as you know, we're surrounded by many businesses, many residents, and we have a large Hispanic population in our neighborhood. And so it's really important for us to make sure that we are reaching out to our Hispanic population. And a personal note on mine is I knew since I was a young police officer that I wanted to be a police. I knew since I was a young kid that I wanted to be a police officer. And I know how big of a population we have that is Spanish speaking. So one of my goals was to learn the language and learn more about the culture. And I studied at the University of California, Davis, studied sociology, and I also studied Spanish, and I studied abroad in Mexico just to learn more about the language, the culture. So it really means a lot to me to be able to connect with our Hispanic community, because we know there's a lot of fear out there. And so anytime we could provide opportunities for our police department, our officers to build relationships with our Hispanic community, it's really important. We're surrounded by a large Hispanic community. We're surrounded by a lot of residents, a lot of people who live in our area and work in our area who speak Spanish. And that's one way that we need to communicate with them. That's really important. So to me, not only on a professional level, but it's really important since I was a young kid to really make an asserted effort to make sure that in being a good police officer, we connect with our entire community, including our Hispanic population.
That's so great. Well, first of all, I love the shout out to UC Davis as a fellow alum. So we
Yes.
always love that. Yay. And then what I really love about what you said is that I grew up in a small town, St. Helena. And I know I've shared that with you guys a little bit in our previous conversations. And so for us, the police officers are very much a part of the community. A lot of it helps because it's pretty small. And so we're used to, see them at football games, at parks, grocery stores, just all entwined. And so a little bit harder here in Sacramento, but what are ways that you're finding you can ingrain yourself in the community? So when people see you, they see that, this is someone, a helper, for lack of a better term.
So, we have a number of programs that we engage in. We look for opportunities, and it's been really hard over the last year to really engage people in person, whether it means working with some of our youth programs, for example, like the Valley High Community Center or La Familia. Prior to COVID, we had officers who would visit both those locations. And we really look for opportunities to engage youth at those particular locations. And it's been a challenge. We try and look for opportunities to engage in communities now that are hosting virtual meetings. And that's one of the reasons we reached out to you, is because we're looking for other opportunities at a time when we found it's really difficult to really connect with communities because of all the restrictions over the last year. We also look for opportunities for recruiting, and I think Vance is actually going to talk a little bit about that, how we recruit in all the communities throughout the city. So we have a couple programs for that, and I'll actually let Vance talk about how we recruit in our communities.
So yeah, we really try to find innovative ways to recruit in our communities, because a lot of our communities, again, don't trust the police department. But we know how critical it is for us to have police officers who are from our community to come be a part of our police department and then serve our community. So one of our innovative ideas most recently, and we've been limited again because of the COVID restrictions, is we've done boot camps out in our community. So we'll host them at different places in the community, like the Oak Park Community Center, somewhere outside of the police department, because then we're going out to the community and people feel much more comfortable in their own neighborhoods versus coming to the police department, because there's a lot of fear coming to our police department for a lot of reasons. That really provides us the opportunity to reach out to people in our community, recruit people from our community, because it's just a great thing when people want to give back to the community that they were raised in. That's a great program. We've had a lot of success. Not only do you get a great workout, but you get to work out with other members from our police department. We have officers go, detectives, sergeants. The chief actually goes pretty frequently too. So you could connect with them and learn a lot about the job, the profession, the demands of it, the application process. And speaking of the application process, we also have workshops, because a lot of this process is an unknown for many people. So we explain during those workshops what the process looks like. There's a lot of components to it, including an oral interview. There's a physical component. There's a medical component. There's a background component. So a lot of people tend to not do as well during all of those cycles of the testing process. So these workshops provide us the opportunity to give them pointers and give them advice and recommendations so that they're successful through that process, because that's what we want. We want members of our community who want to come do good in their community and be police officers. Specific to some of our communities too, we also do a program called Links to Law Enforcement. And that's a really good program that we haven't been able to host recently, but we do regularly when we're not under these COVID restrictions. And we have facilitators from our department who provide insight on everything about our department, everything about the application process, ask any type of questions. And that helps everybody be informed who goes through this program. And we have specific kind of targeted audiences during these programs. For example, we'll have a Hispanic Links to Law Enforcement. So we'll have Hispanic officers go there, talk about their experience of the department, talk about the application process. And then we have one for the Asian community. And so it really helps them to be able to connect. And one of the things that is really beneficial too is it helps younger people in our community look up and see someone like them and say, you know what, that's me. I see myself in that uniform. So we have a lot of really good programs and we're happy to share more. If anybody has questions, we're happy to field questions on any of those too.
That's so great. I love that you guys have already put in place understanding that whole thing about representation matters, right? Is when we see someone and we think, yeah, that's something that I could do. I'm going to ask kind of a silly question, but we're going to ask anyway. So the boot camp. So if someone wants to become a police officer, is looking at that whole part, and maybe they're not quite physically fit as you must be at the end of the boot camp. How much is that? What percentage of that matters to start with? Are they going to be able to just go through the process and eventually they'll get there, or do you need to be in pretty good shape to begin with?
So I'll touch on that. So it does not matter what kind of condition you're in. Everybody has to start somewhere. And really, the goal of that program is to get people connected with our organization. It's important that it's a recruiting tool for us, but it's also a connection tool. When we were running regular boot camps, we'd have a number of people who came just to work out with a group of people who had no desire to become a police officer, but liked the environment, enjoyed being able to talk to police officers in their community. And we get people who maybe are just starting to work on their physical fitness, and then we have people who are phenomenal athletes. And we essentially what we do is we set up a workout, and we have some of our physical trainers organize and run the workout. But everyone runs at their own pace, and if there's exercises that a particular person can't do, they just modify. So it's a good starting place for anybody.
And so what are the next steps? So someone goes through, go through this workshop, your links to law enforcement. I think, you know what, this seems like something I want to go ahead and pursue. What would I do next? You said there's a test and there's a background check. Can you give us a little bit of insight of exactly what those steps are, and maybe like what the time frame is between each? Does it happen all at once, or is it a steps by step?
Right. Do you want to answer that?
Sure. So it really depends on the position. And speaking of position, that's one of the really great things about our police department. We're a large agency. We have over 1,000 employees. And not only do we have sworn opportunities, but we also have professional staff opportunities. Okay. So within the sworn position alone, there are many different positions. Of course, you start first as a police officer, but then, you name it, you could do it in this department. You could be a gang officer, you could be a traffic officer, you could be a bike officer, a SWAT officer, a canine officer. So once you start as a police officer, you could branch off and do so many different things. And then on the professional side, there's a lot of opportunities as well. If you want to be a crime scene investigator, a dispatcher, work as any kind of professional staff member of our organization, and they're both the sworn and professional staff. They're really critical to help us be successful and serve our community. So I just want to mention that because sometimes people think, police, I have to be a police officer. That's not the case. If you want to be a detective or anything like that, you have to be a police officer first, but there are so many different options. And then we have also CSI, dispatch, et cetera. So it really depends on the position. The police officer one specifically, there are more requirements. There's more of the physical requirements. because of the job itself, of the demands of the job. But each job will require a background process. Each one also requires some sort of interview process, an application that you have to fill out. And it really depends on the background process. And it's really unique to kind of each position. And then some of the challenges we have also is just staffing of being able to process the applications, screen the backgrounds, et cetera. So there's no definite like, hey, if you do this, this is then it this long, this takes this long, the next step takes this long. That's why it's just so really important to connect with our department and talk with our people, because you learn about the process. And also you get so many recommendations on how to be successful during that process. And that's the key part. And that's why we've taken so many steps to have all of these programs, because we want people to be successful. We want good people to join our police department, because that's what we're about. We're about providing good service, and it takes good people to provide that good service.
You can, for everybody watching on our website, www.sacpd.org, we actually have a join page. So you click on the join page, and there are stories there about a lot of our officers and how they became police officers. There's some information about boot camp and specific information from our recruiters. There's some connections to some videos we created about specific jobs within the police department. But then to answer your question, there's also some timelines and kind of step-by-steps of what that process looks like. A few years ago, we actually started a recruiting number, and I don't have it on hand. I should have brought it. But on that join page, it's there. And we have a 24-hour cell phone now that a recruiter keeps, that someone can call and leave a message on 24 hours a day. And during daytime hours, one of our recruiters will have that phone and answer the phone, and is there to answer any questions anybody has about becoming a police officer with our department.
That's so great. You know, one of the ones you just shared too, CSI. So for you guys, has it been, I'm gonna be honest, I'm a huge Law and Order fan. I watch all these CSIs. My husband's always like, why are you watching these? And I tell him, well, it's nice because it gets, within an hour, everything's solved in one way or another. But the reality is, I guess it probably takes a little bit more time like that than that in real life. And has it been a detriment for you guys when people are like, why don't we already know what's happening? Can you say, what is that like for you guys?
So I think some people sometimes have an unrealistic expectation of law enforcement based on what they see on TV. And I think sometimes you're absolutely right. People think that if we get someone's fingerprint and within a few minutes, we'll know who the suspect is, or if we collect DNA, we just walk it into the lab and an hour later we have a suspect identified. And you're absolutely right. In the real world, those processes can take days, weeks, and sometimes even months. And so the investigative process, depending on the type of case, can take as little as a day, but sometimes it can take as much as a year. Depending on the type of evidence or when evidence is collected, or the extent of the crime itself. And so, yeah, we use opportunities just like this one often to explain the process and what really goes into an investigation and the time it takes and the number of people involved. To go kind of back to the beginning of that question about CSI, our CSI people are absolutely critical what we do in law enforcement. Evidence collection is really, really important. It's a really interesting and detail-oriented job. And it's, to Vance's point, having so many positions in the department, that is a really unique position for people that have a specific interest in crime scene analysis or forensics. It's a great opportunity, but to just like a police officer role, there are a number of different jobs within CSI, whether it's processing fingerprints or working with DNA or being on scene collecting evidence. So it's a really unique job as well.
Now, if someone actually witnesses a crime or they think they did, what's something that they should do? Like, what's the first step? They call you, you come out. What can someone do if they want to report a crime?
Vance, you want to talk about that?
So the main one is obviously 911. And so if it's an active emergency, then without a doubt, without hesitation, call 911. In most of our areas within the city right now, if you call 911 from a cell phone, it will go to our dispatch center. And I know that I say that because I know pretty much everybody now has a cell phone and there aren't many home phones. But that's really important to know. There will be times potentially where it will go to CHP first, the California Highway Patrol. If that does happen, then if it's an emergency in our city, our jurisdiction, then it'll be transferred to our dispatch center. In addition to 911, if it's not an emergency, but you feel like it's something that I want to report to the police department, say if it's not an active crime in progress, say, say you observe somebody, they looked suspicious, they were kind of checking out your car and now they walked away, but they didn't commit a crime. But you still want the police to know. And I really encourage to still call on those incidents, because if we don't know about crime, if we don't know about suspicious activity, we can't do anything about it. And then also it doesn't help when we look at allocating our resources on where we need to put our patrol officers and where we need to spend our time and energy. So something like that, we have a non-emergency line, and that number is 916-808-5471. Again, that would be for a non-emergency. The great thing that I want to share too is we have 2 additions that we've recently upgraded when you call us. The first one is for those who are hearing impaired, you could actually text us now. So that's also not if you're hearing impaired, if you're in some kind of an emergency and you can't make the call, if you call 911 now, our dispatch, our text 911 rather, our dispatch will get that text notification and then be able to provide you help wherever you are with that cell phone ping. So that's really good news. And it's really an added benefit that we have, because that's providing good service to serve our community. The second one is an addition we added a couple of years ago. When you call our non-emergency number, we have options in Spanish. So when you call that number, and if you're a Spanish speaker, we did this because we looked at all of the non-English speakers who were calling our dispatch, and about 70% of those were Spanish speakers. So we wanted to really be able to communicate with them, listen to them, whatever issues or concerns they had, and give them the opportunity to be able to communicate with us. So when you call our non-emergency number, and if you dial 9, all of the options that you would have when calling our non-emergency number, you will listen to all those options in Spanish, and then you could press whatever number applies for whatever you want to report to us.
That's great. That's a great segue in talking about how to report, to also just talk about reporting in general. We know that there is a lot of fear, particularly in our Latino community, about calling the police when they're a victim of a crime. And one thing we want the community to know is that we are here to serve everybody. And we're here to support every victim. And we don't ask if someone calls to report a crime, or we go out to see them because they're a victim of a crime, what their immigration status is. Those are not a concern to us when it comes to investigating a crime. And we investigate all crimes equally, regardless of where someone comes from. And it's really important to us, and it's part of the reason having these connections with the community is so important, because we don't want people to be afraid to call us if they've been a victim of a crime. We know that fear is out there, and part of us being out in the community is to try and break down some of that fear, so that if someone is the victim of a crime, they know that they can call us and have the trust in us to call us. We're working on a program right now. We're actually going to meet with, after this meeting, we're meeting with La Familia to discuss a program about having a safe space for victims to come and report crime. So if we have a Spanish-speaking victim that maybe doesn't feel comfortable coming to the police department, or is nervous about us coming to their home, our goal is to identify locations and community partners within the community where we could meet a victim and sit down with a representative from that organization who is Spanish speaking, who can help us sit down with a victim and hear what occurred and help take a report and initiate an investigation. So strategies like that that help us build those connections and also give victims a place where they can feel comfortable calling the police and reporting a crime are something that's really, really important to us.
It's Captain Green. That's so important that you are, reaching out to other community-based organizations that you're right have that trust already built in,
Right.
and that you're, building that with them, and providing that safe place, for them to go to. On top of that, there's something else I wanted to have the opportunity to talk about. As our time is almost ending, people, we have so much we haven't even gotten to tap onto, but. When we spoke in a different conversation, there was an incident that had been happening out in the area where some kids were basically riding bikes and, hitting people over. I don't know if it was like a social media game or something's on a video, but they're basically, you sounded like you found the people, but what I was really impressed with is what you said. Well, we think we found these kids, and now we're trying to meet with the parents to figure out what kind of programs we can get them into to help them. So it wasn't just necessarily that you're like, we found them, we're taking them away, they're all bad kids. Can you talk a little bit about the resources that you have to try to connect, especially youth, to other resources, to find other avenues, to try, really sounded to me like you were actually trying to find out what the root of an issue was, whether it was boredom or just needing youth programs have been closed because of the pandemic. But, what is your role in making sure that there's other alternatives for kids?
So we work really closely with community organizations that offer social services and family support and youth intervention and diversion throughout our entire city. So each area of our city has a captain, just like me, who makes those connections in their area. And then what we try to do is find, because we know that we can't arrest away most of the problems in our community. To your point, there are much deeper root causes of those. And our goal really is not to arrest away crime, but to help get rid of crime. But we're just one part of that equation. And so we use those nonprofit and external organizations as partners to identify solutions. That doesn't mean there's no one ever goes to jail, but what it could mean is that if someone does go to jail, we're also collaborating with whether it's a family support or a youth diversion program to also get those services to that person as well. And oftentimes, particularly like with the group of kids we spoke about before, if there's an opportunity for us to get those services there before those kids ever get engaged with the justice system, or arrested on a crime, or even get a citation on a crime, we look for those opportunities because we would much rather intervene, particularly in a child's life, and just change their course with some other nonprofit or social service organizations, and so that they don't ever interact with the justice system again. And it really, that collaborative effort, I think, into resolving problems and identifying solutions is really what is going to make us successful as a community.
And I think that's great. I go back again, who I said, coming from a small town and having, our police department and police officers be so ingrained, in the community, that I appreciate, hearing about these programs that you have in place and that you're looking for other solutions, to make sure that people realize, that we're really in all of this together, right? That's what makes us stronger. Is there anything, before we, wrap up, that you really wanted to make sure you got across, to the community, and particularly the Latino community? I'm not going to put you on the spot, Lieutenant Chandler, but if you had a message in Spanish you wanted to share, you feel free to do that. But I do want to give you the opportunity, if there's anything else you wanted to share.
I know we're short on time, so to your point, I'm going to let Vance share that, because I know that we would share the same message, so I'm going to let Vance answer that.
I'll say something in English first, because I think this is really important. Your program is called Juntos with Cathy, and our vision statement for our entire police department is together we build trust through transparency and truth. So we're all about doing this together too, because we know that it takes community leaders like you for us to be successful as an entire city. So thanks for hosting us. And for all of those listening, les quiero decir que somos su policía, y si necesita ayuda, queremos ayudarle por cualquier cosa. Y lo más importante, si usted es una víctima de un crimen, lo más importante es que le damos apoyo, y porque queremos ayudar a todos, incluyendo nuestra comunidad hispana. y si necesita ayuda, por favor, que nos hable. No nos importa las otras cosas. Lo más importante es que damos el apoyo que necesita.
Thank you, Lieutenant Chandler. That was, a wonderful message for us to end our time with. I'm going to give an open invitation to you guys. I feel like there's so much more we could discuss and go through. I know we also talked about at some point you'd like to have an open house, out at the station, especially, because it's, right there in the heart of, Franklin area. And so we definitely want to be a part of that. And I just want to thank you again for being proactive, for looking for solutions, for really wanting to be engaged in the community, because you are very much a part of the community. And, we need you. So I want people to realize that, it's a safe place for to go, and that you are definitely our friends and allies, and that you're here to make sure the community stays strong and safe. So with that, thank you, Captain Green. Thank you, Lieutenant Chandler, for joining us today, and, for doing all the work that you do. We really appreciate it. We know that every day you're, doing something to make it a little bit better than you found it. And sometimes that makes life a little bit dangerous for you and your families. And so I just want to let you know that we realize that, and we appreciate the service that you give to our community. So thank you.
Thank you so much. The truth is we need you just as much as you need us. And we couldn't do this if we didn't do it together. And your leadership in the community is second to none. And we really appreciate all you're doing, and you welcoming us into your community and your family so that we can do this together. And when we are able to open back up and do that open house, we will absolutely be a partner with you. And our hope is that we are happy to come back anytime you would like to talk to us, whether it's on a specific topic or just to check in. We are happy to come back at any time.
Well, wonderful. Like I said, open invitation. We're going to definitely have you guys back.
Excellent.
Well, thank you. And hopefully our first visit, we have recruited at least one new police officer and one new crime scene investigator.
Yeah.
That would definitely be success. So we'll make sure we'll find out if that happens too. Well, thank you,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, officers, for being here with us. For those of you that were with us today, this was Juntos with Cathy. It's a weekly Thursday show we do at noon, where we meet with partners and organizations that we work with and collaborate with. And, doing the same thing that I've always said, we just want to make sure the work we do is strong, and that we're leaving everything a little bit better than we found it. I started off, today's Juntos by reminding us all that we need to stand together. I, want to remind us of that message. So if you see anything, we need to remember to speak up for each other. We need to stand up for each other, and we need to support one another. Our community is only as strong as the engagement that we each personally give to it. So make sure that you're a part of it. Thank you all, and I'll see you next Thursday.